Good.
Okie dokie.
I hear the printer.
Wait, we told time.
Find our AI summaries. Real quick. Okay. Calling land use and planning to order on this lovely March 9th at 4:30 p.m. And first off, we will start with reviewing the AI meeting minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to take a look at those?
Hold on, email.
And then, let's see, looking at the next steps. And do we want those removed, or do we feel fine with those? Yeah, the only thing I can see is spelling corrections again for Lions Park.
Yeah, and I went in there and tried to make the corrections. Oh, they're changing line. Yeah, but they flipped it.
Yeah, yep.
So it was like, no.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, like, why would it be Lions with a Y? But anyway, I will make a motion, actually, I'll
make a
entertain
motion.
There we go.
To approve minutes from February 9th meeting.
I would like.
Awesome. Motion passes. Fantastic. So first things first, I'm going to jump into, do we have Brian online?
I believe I see that there's a BH on there. I'm assuming that's Brian.
That's
Brian, is that you listening in?
Yes, it's me.
Okay.
Hi, Brian.
We had Mo earlier pre-meeting, and so we muted you.
So if it's okay with everyone, do we feel good about moving up Sonoma Champions Rodeo, just to get that out of the way here real
Yeah,
fast?
that's fine.
Okay. So Brian, if you would like to introduce that, that'd be great.
So it's just an MOU for, with the Rodeo Association to help maintain what we're calling Rodeo Park. So then it will just be designated with their event every year for the 4th of July. This has been an MOU that I think has been years in the working that we're finally getting done, hopefully.
Gotcha.
So before now, there's been no prior MOU?
My recollection is that there was one many, many years ago, but I think it's been expired. What there was a few years ago was a lease which would in no way stand up in court any more than if you had written the lease and given them permission to do that. That addressed and covered some of the things in it. So, but this is how, this is the appropriate way to do it. And so I'm looking at it and can kind of compare it. I have a few thoughts and concerns when we get there, but I
So
just
this
have some
MOU,
questions.
okay, so they're actually, because, I mean, we just recently called it a Rodeo Park.
Yeah, and we actually aren't
I looked at
really
Rodeo.
calling it Rodeo Park yet, so that's, I had a question on that. I
Okay.
don't see a downside with that. It kind of makes it easier as we move toward making it a park, but that would need to be a separate move still
Oh, okay.
that we need to do.
Yeah. That was what I was under the impression on, is that, one, we didn't have Rodeo Park established at this point.
Right.
Two, I just have a couple of small concerns throughout. It does sound like the attorneys have looked through this, which is great. The only thing that I would see is just some consistencies or inconsistencies, I'd say, in formatting throughout the document. A couple of small typos, but one of my big concerns is it says one spray for noxious weeds per year. Mike, is that enough at Rodeo Park? Like,
Probably more than is getting done now.
all right.
All right, that's
But that
fabulous.
wasn't the question.
I don't know, I mean, it seems like There's a lot of concern over spraying chemicals around places in Red Lodge, so I don't know.
All I know is if we have a ordinance that says noxious weeds are illegal and we need to deal with them,
Yeah, no, I'm all for it,
okay.
so.
But yeah, that'd be my only thing is, in this, it says responsibilities of the city is to provide one annual treatment to control noxious and nuisance weeds within Rodeo Park, and I just don't know what has been protocol in the past.
I'm not sure
Not that we have
what, Red Rooster comes in and sprays some stuff every year.
Okay.
I'm not
We-
even sure what all they
We
spray.
sprayed that every
Right.
year.
No,
Okay.
does it?
One time though?
Just one?
So
Oh, that's what I
rodeo,
wanna know.
what we're calling rodeo park, the dog park, most places in public areas in Red Lodge usually get sprayed once a year.
Okay.
And that's it. So is this then going to replace the one in the parking area, or is it gonna be in addition to?
It's the same one that we do annually.
Okay, my question is, this MOU has them taking responsibility for doing it once a year?
No, it
No,
doesn't, it's
no, it
the
doesn't.
responsibility of the city.
Responsibility of the city.
Yep.
The city
Oh,
shall-
yep, that is under the city.
Yep.
Okay,
And then they have to mow it, that's where that is they have to be, they're obligated to mow the grass within the park prior to the champion, or Home of Champions rodeo each summer once.
Before the
say
first
the-
major event,
yeah, that needs to be changed to first major event, so
Oh,
First scheduled event, instead of first one.
first scheduled major event, and that's, I'll wait until you get there, but I have several comments in line with that.
okay. Well, Brian, do you want to explain this any further, or do you want to just continue hearing our notes?
I'll just listen to you guys talk.
Sweet, thanks, I appreciate it. So in terms of my other issues, again, besides the formatting and such, I also had concerns, and more so just question of 1.8 under the rodeo's responsibilities in regards to the liability insurance.
You are correct in your thought.
Yep. I worry about that being enough for that large of an event. I also wonder if it's worth having a dollar amount, as we've kind of talked about with other MOUs,
Right.
to where that will be more detailed within the application for use versus,
MOU.
And it might change in the next 5 years. So they
Exactly.
basically have to provide the same thing that everybody else in the city does. So historically, we have not put dollar amounts in here, and we have specifically eliminated dollar amounts.
yeah.
So it just says they have to have coverage in keeping with the city requirements,
Yeah.
and does list the city as an additional insured.
I think otherwise, and then just in terms of the signage, shall install and maintain appropriate signage related to the events at its own expense, and I think just stating the same way we did with disc golf, that it has to follow the regulations within the city. I'm not sure if we need to say that, because it's already something they have to do, but that would be my only other thought on that. Yes, sir.
So I had two questions. So one of them is that this talks about specifically July 1st through July 4th. And again, I'm maybe stepping back up 100 feet. Generally what it is you get this in exchange for having to pay $100 a day to use it. And am I correct, Brian? That's the kind of the root intent?
Yeah, I mean, that's typically the reason for it is getting an exclusive use free of charge. But I think this one goes more to helping protect the event, to make sure that that is always for them, since it
Okay.
is one of the biggest events in Red Lodge and it's been going for 100 years. And just having this in place will help ensure that someone doesn't say, well, I'm going to come in early with an application and I'm going to use it that weekend.
Okay, so my first question in relation, keeping with that, is this is just talking about July 1st through 4th. First off, is ski joring done by Home of Champions Rodeo, or is that an independent event?
Independent.
Okay, so that is not there, so it doesn't include ski joring in here, they would come in there. The second thing I had to do, and it has to do with like 1.3 and 1.4, and what it says is, it says they will submit a land use, but in 1.4 and 1.5, it says Home of Champions shall provide adequate garbage receptacle during events, which to me means any events, and then toilet facilities. And if I'm Home of Champions Rodeo, I don't want to be paying toilets and trash for the Renaissance Fair or the bike rally or anything else up there. So to me, I think the intent there is just that for their events, they're providing trash and toilets. Any objection there, Brian?
No, I mean, it's kind of an MOU based around the rodeo event. That,
But the language doesn't say that, so we can just,
Even though they're all independent, they're not, those are.
well, yeah,
That's how it's
what I'm saying is you're not absorbing responsibility for making sure they have it. You're just worried about your event.
Yeah.
all other events put in a separate application for their use of the same ground.
I'm aware of that. That's just not what this MOU says right now, but I thought that was your intent.
So we just need to make sure that it's specific. The Home of Champions Rodeo shall provide adequate garbage receptacles during this event.
Yeah, during this event.
Yep.
During the July 1 to 4th event. And then my second question is, if they have other events up there that are theirs, so we also don't want to get into as well, I'm the Home of Champions Rodeo and I'm sponsoring ski joring or the bike rally or this is just their event and their events only, but if they have another event up there, is that included in this or no, or would they have to pay $100 if they have a spare rodeo in August?
But doesn't it say first through the fourth?
This is just first through
Yeah.
fourth.
Then this
But-
is
So you'd assume you'd have to have a different MOU or another.
Or pay $100 a day, and that's the other part. Because we also don't talk about waiving the $100 a day, which I believe is also part of it. Brian?
There's
In
a
exchange
section on
for-
the application that if you're an MOU, you check that and you don't have to pay the fees.
Oh,
Not
it's
in
on the
the
application.
MOU, it's in-
Okay. And then we already talked about changing the mowing to not just before that, it has to be before the first scheduled major event. So, and again, this may be the first event this year, but like last year when the Renaissance Fair came in June, we were up mowing and going, oh crap, nobody thought to think to tell them, hey, we need this mowed sooner. So it's just whenever the first event is. Issues, concerns?
I still think it should just, like you guys said, specific for this event.
Okay, but what happens if we have something in there in June? Are you guys gonna go in and mow early?
It's not their responsibility.
Yeah.
That's not our responsibility.
So if we go in and mow it in June, now you don't have to mow it anymore. So what are you giving us in exchange for the
Or
MOU?
we still mow it. We still mow it after you mow it.
A week after we mow it?
If that's what
Hey.
the MOU states, yeah. We'll touch up.
Yeah.
Well, we
Yeah.
reckon.
Well,
Any
my 2 cents would be that we have them, like I said, because they're doing something in exchange for something else.
Mhm.
They're bringing insane amounts of revenue to the community in exchange for being able to use that space. That's kind of my thought. Like,
Yeah.
I bet Lily's stoked to mow that.
I don't think it's him who mows it. We had 2 or 3 people last year in there. I don't have an opinion that counts. That was my understanding going into it is it was like, oh, this needs to get mowed and they're doing it.
That was
right now,
kind of the
happening.
intent.
Well, that's what I thought, but what if that event is in June?
I think when we originally talked, kind of the intent was, the mowing would be the biggest part and the rodeo could assist in that. And it might be the first week, it might be in June, first week of June rather than 4th of July. Typically, we have to mow that once a year.
Right, and that's, so you're saying what I think I tried to just say, which is, it's just that they mow it, that may or may not need to be done sooner than the 4th,
Correct.
depending on if there's a major event up there. And I'm just making sure that's okay with you guys.
Yeah.
Because so now we are all on the same page.
Yeah.
So I'm taking my no out and putting it back to a yes.
Brian said we mow it the first part of June or the middle of June.
It gets mowed.
Yeah, and like I said, a lot of it may be dictated just by if there's an event there that needs it or not. Because right now we don't, and obviously we have to provide adequate, and that would be down under the city things, is the city needs to notify if there's something coming up that's gonna require, notify of when the mowing deadline is, based on other events. Unscheduled events, okay.
Any other notes for this MOU?
I think it was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm pretty content with it. Happy with it?
Yep.
Awesome. Mike, happy with it?
Sure.
Brian, are you happy with it?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Betcha.
Yeah.
You betcha.
Fabulous. Well, then we will, I guess next steps is we'll need some edits to this. Do we need Brian to make these edits and have them sent off to the lawyers? Or do you want to do that, or should?
To me, we should do our edits, make sure you guys make sure you're happy with it, and that the city's happy with it. When everyone's happy with it, then we send it to the attorney and make sure it's good. So that means it'll be it's not on the work session this week for request of the committee chair. So next week, it'll be in front of the whole council, but not next meeting.
Right.
It'll be in front of the whole council, with these things addressed, and hopefully that's everybody's good, let's put it on for action the next time. So it'll be a month out before we get it in place.
Perfect. Moving on. I'm just going in reverse order now. Tennis courts, next steps, discussion. I'm going to look at my table, and I'm gonna look at this side of the room.
I was like, I'm kind of looking at this.
I wasn't really given much context in regard to why this needed to be put on, except I had 2 other council members tell me we need to put this on.
And we actually have, Mike did get to me an update.
Someone told me to tell you.
I think we
Like,
just
okay. Like,
wanted
sure.
to, we just,
Update.
we're
Jody
getting,
Ronning told us we had to do it.
yeah.
She told me that,
We
so
wanna
like,
know,
I don't know.
we wanna know what you guys need to see in order to approve the use of that ground for tennis court.
Sure.
Did
'Cause
they
we're at
already?
a point where we're starting to spend money
Mhm.
on design, and we're gonna start changing things around, like with the easements and with the boundary,
Okay,
so that the funding agencies will work with them.
okay.
So we just need to know from you guys what you need presented to you, so that you can say yea or nay. Let's build tennis court here.
Did we get the,
I
Jody?
can do a really super quick update.
And I'm printing what we have, but it does not, it's basically just 2 pages, so I thought it was gonna be more like a PIR output. Did we really just get 2 pages?
No, right now we did. We've asked, when we did this in the beginning, we skipped like a PAR or PER. We just went to design and getting a bid package together, but with a cost estimate in the front, so that if their cost estimate came out at 1.7 million, we could back up where we spent money on design.
But
So that's the cost estimate.
But what I'm seeing is only the one cost estimate. My understanding is you had 2 or 3.
There was 4.
I don't have that though.
Yeah, well, those are the one, that's the one I think that the board agreed on.
So we did have, Mike had a great idea, and we hired Great West, because that's the city's firm, contracted firm. to do, first a survey, 3 tasks, first a survey, and then more site design and a closer cost estimate, a tighter cost estimate.
Cool.
And then the third thing would be to put together bid packages and everything if we get to that point.
Perfect.
So we had a phone meeting with them last week, and they presented 4 alternatives and said, we want you to pick one before we take it all the rest of the way, so we're not wasting time and money.
Right.
Okay.
And so the ones they had were one slab with all 4 courts on it, fully excavated with the coal material gone underneath. That was very expensive.
Okay.
And then they also did a 2-tiered, where 2 courts would be a little higher than the other. They wouldn't be at the same elevation. And they did that, for fully excavated, or piers, the piers underneath. And you might remember from the geotech report, they talked about a couple options 2 weeks ago. So the fully excavating, whether you did 2-tiered courts or 1 slab, was quite expensive, 1.2 and 1.7, something like that.
Right.
So we picked the one for $940,000, which is 1 slab with all 4 courts on the piers, which the geotech said would work, and these guys think it will work. So, Brandon is gonna take that just a little further, get that to us. We're gonna tell him where to put the gates and the fence, what kind of fence we want, that sort of thing, in the next couple of weeks. And then we'll have that report where we can bring you the drawings that are like what he thinks are final, pretty close to final.
Sure.
Cost estimate, pretty close to final, engineer's estimate.
Perfect.
And then, we want to bring that back to you guys. And my understanding from earlier talks with the mayor is, at that point, we want to develop the MOU to go ahead and develop the property.
Yeah.
basically, for the
No, that's
construction.
pretty much exactly what I was gonna say, is
Yeah.
with that, having it
Yeah,
coupled
now that
in
we
with
have
an
it.
MOU similar.
But we
to
don't
this.
have it in hand to give to you today.
No,
for
that's
the mayor.
totally fine.
Yeah, so it's a heads up that this whole
Perfect.
thing is moving
Rolling.
along.
Okay.
Excellent.
So the
Yeah,
post-
yeah, we're pretty excited.
The post,
The post-tension concrete slab, that's the piers, basically.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, all at the same
And
elevation.
the map is still printing and taking its time. But my thinking is, think of the other projects we have in front of us too. So like I said, right now, this is the step that they give us the information,
Mhm.
so we can make a decision about, yes, we're gonna proceed,
yeah.
or no.
Okay.
And then one of Mike's earlier pieces of feedback, Mike, please correct me if I capture this incorrectly, is when we give them, so there's 2 things we could do. The first is, we could do an MOU that just says, go out and get a finalized design, which is spending some money, and then come back and then we'll make the decision. But then when we say, go forth and build it, Mike's feedback was, we should at that same time have what the maintenance MOU is already in place, because you don't build something without knowing how you're gonna take care of it.
Agreed.
And we do know that there are some things that have to be resolved before we do that. They're not showstoppers, they're just things we have to do. One of them is, there's currently an easement for that road that goes up through the middle of it that you don't see because it's not there,
Okay.
but it still exists on paperwork, that's how the wildlife sanctuary gets to them, is through a road that's right through the middle of this.
Mhm.
The other part is that part of that lot is still leased by the high school, and the high school has indicated that they will unlease it and give it back to us, so that would have to be taken care of.
Okay.
And then the third thing is, how do we want to address the maintenance of it? When we first approached this, our thinking was we were gonna add it to the high school lease,
Yeah.
and then have them be responsible for maintenance of it. Having said that, Mike raised the point early on, if this is gonna be theirs, we shouldn't be putting resort tax dollars at all into it, and there are some resort tax dollars going into it. So now we're back to, in essence, the same thing we have with the rodeo association, which is, this is our land, but you get something in exchange for it. So then the MOU that we'd actually have in place is gonna be, I mean, maybe there's one with these guys as well, but there's an MOU with the high school that says, you guys get first dibs on the scheduling, and in exchange, you're taking over the maintenance of it. And that's kind of in line with our first spirit. So then the question is, are we talking 2 MOUs? Are we just gonna decide now and say, we trust this estimate, go for it? Or are we gonna do an MOU that says, go out and get a final actual design? Because to Mike's point, this is kind of halfway between a PAR and a real design stage that's there.
Well, wasn't that your selection was you were presented 4 of these and then this was the one you chose? And so now we go,
Now we need them to finish up the report.
okay,
So, yeah, we didn't get,
Finish up design, the
the
report's
design.
basically gonna be
yeah,
plan, but the design court with buildable plans
Yeah.
and bid package with whatever bond requirements, blah, 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 blah. So it's
Okay.
not really gonna be a report on this, because we're just going bare bones, design, get it built.
But where is the council's decision in that process?
Yeah.
Well, the council has to say, yes, you have our permission to build on city land.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess that's what my question was coming here is, how do we get this through this system, and what do you need from us to get it through the system? Do you need the final design, or is this good enough, or?
I mean, I would like to
I
see the pictures.
I'd like to,
So the pictures are printing, they're just being slow, but it's not the final.
but part of me would also like to see the final design
Yeah.
too, right? Like,
Yeah.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Does the final design include any more confidence in like the pier system, or is that fairly, pretty confident already?
No, that, from going back, when the engineers went back, they talked to the geotech firm. They asked them, you know, what's the probability of success versus total X versus round
Right.
aggregate piers, and they said they felt it was the same.
Oh, okay. So
Same
it's not like
level of
80%
percentage of success.
Right, probably it'll be fine, yeah, okay.
maybe.
And just so, you know, in the design of this, you know, that, if you're familiar with that kind of hill just north of Second Street there, the way that this would fit on that would be, we kind of find the sweet spot in the middle of it.
Right.
So on the top side, there'd be a slope like there is by the baseball field,
Yeah,
about the same, a 4-to-1 slope coming down.
okay,
And it would drop down approximately 5 feet.
okay.
The court, and the court would be level, and then there'd be a 4-to-1 slope at the end of Cooper, going down to Cooper.
Yep.
And that, it just, aesthetically, it's better, less fill, cost, more cost effective that way.
Okay.
Is like runoff and drainage part of that final plan, or is it
No,
not really a
we
factor?
discussed that. They originally had it all draining from the east to the west.
Okay.
And I think maybe it's on here. Yeah, we wanted them to maybe, change that. You see that red line going east to west across the court? So then it would break, and the water would drain north-south.
Okay.
Oh,
I think the slope they found there was 0.9%. And you can kind of see in this drawing, those lines above it are the contours coming down to the court, and then on the west side, those contours are going down to Cooper Avenue.
gotcha.
And there's about 5 on each end.
Cool.
Great.
so they have to, and they have to meet the U.S. Tennis Association specs for tennis courts. And they have coordinated with them, but that addresses things like drainage and the slab and all the stuff, the spacing, the amount of distance at the end of the court, all that kind of stuff. So
Regulations.
meet all of those
Yeah, right.
requirements.
Okay.
And with this design, I just didn't mention it, but there's I think 64 feet of retaining wall in that northeast corner. You can see it there, just
yeah.
because the road chambers kind of comes back around there.
Yeah. That looks great. So in terms of my thoughts, and you guys, if you want to add to this, by all means, I think having those finalized plans, you know, essentially what the ask is, whether that's financial, whether that's maintenance, whether that's, obviously the space, that's pretty clear. What the official ask is, the final ask is from the city. Creating that MOU for maintenance and construction, and then a list of special provisions that have to be completed prior to starting construction that we can approve on. So essentially, we can have that built into the MOU. I think that's the way to do it, is that prior to construction, X, Y, Z, so the easement has to get adjusted, the school has to give up the lease.
Maintenance,
Yeah,
or are we gonna do a separate?
I think having it all, I don't see why not have it together, unless, again, I'm open to, it'd be nice to have just one document versus two.
Agreed.
Essentially, but at the same time, I can see the benefit of having one that's just gonna live in perpetuity and get renewed every
Mhm.
5 years versus having one big complex one.
Can the abandonment of the easement, however that works, and the change of the boundaries, can that just be something that occurs right now and is not part of the MOU?
Yeah, it just needs to be done before we start construction.
Yeah, totally, yep. Again, the only thing that I would say is, it's one of those contingencies of, oh good, I'm not early.
No.
I was like, wait.
They're early.
I got so confused. That'd be just one of those contingencies before being able to build. So it'd be part of the timeline, the same way that you'd have like special provisions in a contract,
Mhm.
so,
Maybe one of the city will get
mhm. Yep.
that easement taken care of.
And then, I mean, I think we already have gotten the okays or the green lights from city staff at this point, Parks Board at this point. Those would be the two primaries that we've kind of discussed before. I don't know if, and honestly, I would love to have the green light or the considerations of our planning department, just so that way, that's one more green light. And basically having them review the final design, and then the same way that they would do for a conditional use or something along those lines. If there's something that their smart brains come up with that my dumb brain doesn't.
We have them, so let me ask, may I answer?
Yeah.
So what is the dollar expenditure between this rough guesstimate and an actual set of plans that we would hand to somebody to build this? What's the cost to get there?
I can't, we've got it, I don't have it with me.
What's the cost to it?
Number two on that little table.
Number 2 is $29,900.
So $30,000 more to spend to final plan?
That include number one with it, or no?
No.
Or that-
Yeah.
By the way, what they're
I got the
referring to, I
numbers
think,
right
is task orders. So when they said that was like task order number one,
Yeah.
task order number
We're like,
two.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have that, but I wrote, okay, task 1 was $48.50 survey. Task 2, preliminary design and cost estimates, $29,900. And task 3, the bidding process, $5,200. And so the tennis board is committed in paying for all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
For all of those task two and task three?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so my 2 cents, based on what we've talked about, and again, looking at other projects we have going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Making them match. To me, what you've done now is the equivalent of, here's the information, and what I would probably like to see, and maybe we don't need to do it, but if we tell them, go spend another $29,000, I'd like to see council say, yes, go spend the $29,000 and come up with a final plan, even though that's their money.
I agree.
And then when they come back with the final plan, which has what the ask is, hopefully at that point, we've already addressed the YWS easement, we've already addressed the stuff with the high school, and then you're basically just coming in and ask for permission to go forth and build. And when we do that, we need to have that MOU that says, yeah, here's how it's gonna get maintained, because we have to know what that's gonna look like going forward. But there's nothing that says we can't be working on the YWS easement, the lease with the land, or developing the MOU while that is happening. But if I were in your position, before I go spend the $29,000, and again, trying to keep this in line with the other projects we've got going on, there would be, because if I look at Red Lodge Ice, they're gonna come back with a document that says, and we're just looking at the one page here, but they had 4 recommendations, 4 out of there. Red Lodge Ice is gonna come back and say, here's our recommendation, here's option 2, here's option 3, here's option 4. And then presumably our next step would say, go spend the money and come back with a buildable set of plans.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'd come back, which has a real cost to it. This is an estimate, which we have a high level of confidence in. I mean, all of our water, sewer, blah, 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 they come back pretty close to this.
Right.
and then we go say, go forth and build. And I just wanna make sure it's the same, that we can do the same process over and over and over again.
So, Dave, the 29.9, that's already mostly spent, or a whole bunch of it, with the work they've done so far.
Yeah.
So that's already committed, that's already ongoing.
Yeah.
The only thing that's waiting is for all the approvals, then we would do the bid package. So that piece
And they have
is,
to finalize the design.
yeah, we'd have to get everything first before
So you
we.
need our approval to move
And
forward.
I think when we put this in front of
Oh,
council,
yes, for sure.
we don't
Well,
just
to do
give
the-
them the one, you give them options 1, 3, and 5 that also didn't get included.
Preferred option.
Yeah, and say, this is the preferred option, but council is having to make a decision to say, yes, let's do X.
We didn't want him to take all the other three options out to minute detail because.
No, and don't.
Just say what they are.
At a PAR level, you don't. It's
Okay.
this same level
Right.
right here,
Okay,
just show us the 3 that you voted against. And from what I've heard, council's gonna agree,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but I don't wanna trust us, do this is the best one. And again, project that into other projects we have going on right now. That's not gonna work.
Was this
That's
an alternative?
That's essentially what Red Lodge Ice is gonna be doing too.
Was that-
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I want it to be
No,
exactly
that's
the same
something
thing.
the USTA,
USTA, that was a real preliminary thing we got.
So I have a question about that. The original concept was to have a storage, building, you know, some
Yes,
kind
a small storage.
small
building.
storage
Yes,
building and restroom complex.
yes.
In the.
And it shows it in the middle.
Mhm.
That's pretty
So the question
I know.
is, I have, is there not enough room for
there's
that?
not enough room for that.
So
That's why it got shrunk down.
That's not
okay.
included in the
So
price.
this is not, okay.
That
I think-
site's pretty constraining for Fort Court.
But I think that probably needs to come up, because I think there is sort of a general understanding that was, you know, it was in the original concept of the plan, and I think it should be made,
Yeah,
you know, we should
It-
have
it-
that made
yeah,
known
it
that
didn't
that's
work
not gonna
out.
be included. If it didn't
Yeah.
work out, it doesn't,
Yeah,
but in the,
Yeah.
the spatial constraints.
well, so that's one of the things when they come back to the next iteration and we'll comment and say, well, could the storage building go like down the slope over on this side of the courts rather than up here?
And then
So
there was some talk
I
about,
feel like, I almost feel like this was a premature discussion. Jody pushed. And we didn't have a product to give you. Dave printed off some pieces that came out of a call kind of thing. And so I feel like we can't answer everything right now.
That's okay.
No,
And
I-
we want you to have
Yeah.
better information.
But I think we've still got a pretty good list of
Yeah.
what needs to happen next to get there.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the other item too is some landscape enhancements, improvements. You know, we are taking out
Taken out.
Yes.
some trees
Yes.
and, and any project should have some landscaping involved in
Yes.
it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with the mayor. I'd like to see obviously the other ones weren't cost effective or pricey, but I would like to still see
Sure,
what the other options were.
okay.
I mean, this clearly, I don't know. I like that idea, but unfortunately, like you say.
I know, yeah.
You like what?
I do like this idea of here with the,
In the corner.
the middle, everything there, but, I mean, it's understandable, I get it.
So moving forward with the easement and the property boundary, do I need to do that?
Well, so the easement, what I'm looking at is things that they'll do. So the easement, yeah, you can, and we've already had that conversation, you can continue working forward with that.
So,
And by the way, that conversation is gonna be, what are you getting in exchange for this? We're gonna give you an easement up the back, which you don't have right now. Remember the back
Yeah.
entrance that you said they don't have? And then the MOU at the high school, we've already started that conversation, so we can finish up and be moving it. What I'm trying to figure out if there's anything in there, the MOU would have to come to council for authorization to sign, so I can get that being developed. The easement, I think, is something that'll actually come to council for an authorization to sign as well. So both of those already have that safety measure built into them. What it feels like to me is we've combined the PAR and the design into one, but in fairness, this is only the PAR we've got because we haven't got the design, but you're pretty close to the design. Just before they approve it, I think it's gonna have to be, here's the final design,
Yeah,
final cost,
yeah.
and the MOU of how it's gonna be maintained once it gets there.
Yeah.
And I don't know what Red Lodge Tennis is I don't know what Red Lodge Tennis is. We maybe need to have a meeting with you and the high school, with Fitz, to see, because if they're the ones maintaining it, and they're obligating themselves financially,
Mhm.
maybe you guys aren't a factor in that MOU. It's just getting them to
We
sign the
probably are.
dotted line.
Right, we probably aren't.
Would they need an MOU for use of the facility? With Red,
With the city.
with Red Light, yeah.
Well, no, everybody in the world has use of the facility.
Well, I
If
know
they
that.
wanted first dibs on it, they'd have to do something in
I mean,
exchange
it's
for
gonna
it.
be available for general,
Yeah.
public use, there's no doubt about that, but if there was a time when your organization wanted to host tournaments or, some kind of a special event, if you're gonna be in that realm, then would you need an MOU?
Yeah, or is that in conjunction with the school whenever you do that? Or would you guys do them independent of the school?
Well, the school's gonna be, the MOU, the school's gonna be involved in the maintenance of the facility, right?
But they're also gonna be the tournaments, the school will be hosting tournaments
Well,
there.
Yeah, for school tournaments, yes, of course.
But, and that-
But
you're saying-
outside of school tournaments,
Okay,
if you're gonna have a regional, some kind of, association tournament.
Right, we probably don't need to work that out right here, right now.
Okay.
I think the conversation needs to continue with.
but there needs to be one of those, that's what we're identifying.
Hey, do you guys feel comfortable with being able to make some of those next steps, and then?
Yeah, and I would just ask, so maybe we'll come back to you with a recommendation of how the MOUs might be structured and with what parties and cover what.
Perfect.
Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yep.
And I think for council meeting tomorrow, Chelsea, it's just, verifying with the rest of council that this is the steps we're working on, but we're telling them to proceed with finishing the design.
Okay.
And make sure everybody's on board, because what you don't want to do is do that and then screech on the brakes.
Oh, okay,
Thank you.
okay. I don't want to screech on the brakes. I just had like a little gut drop
Oh, yeah, we would.
But yes, we will bring this up and kind of mention where we're at, and what the next steps are.
Okay.
We have 8 minutes left before we need to wrap this up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Red Lodge ICAR MOU is up for action tomorrow. Any additional comments or questions or concerns for that?
No, I mean, like, going through what we're going through now.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like the additions to number 7. I think those covered everything that I was thinking of last time.
Perfect. Cool. Glad we were able to get those in.
And there was a couple others that Chelsea and Jeremy, the other Jeremy, not Jeremy, that added, it had to do with, the city is gonna have designate a couple people on the selection committee. Number 5 in there.
Yep. Has Red Lodge Ice looked at this and said it's okay?
There was a couple of suggestions that they made, and I took their counter suggestions to, the planner, and the planner said, I disagree, let's not do those. And one of them was specifically, they wanted language in there that said they're looking at only these 2 sites. And it's like, why would, and their information was, why would you, limit options, and so that was part of the meeting that they added up front, is to say, here's the sites we've looked at, and here's why they were, just so they can kind of, what they don't want to do is spend an extra $50,000 doing an in-depth on a whole bunch of things, but we did want them to address the parking lot at the Civic Center, or what's that park called down there by the Civic Center that I'm not remembering, Doug Brown.
Doug Brown.
Doug Brown Field, there we go. And so there was that was part of, so there is a city meeting, it's not a public meeting, there's a public meeting at the end, but there was a city meeting, up
A
front.
kickoff meeting.
Yeah, a kickoff meeting to say, make sure you guys address this, that, and the other sort of a thing.
Yeah, okay.
But it wasn't anything deal breaking, like there.
No, and there was not, my thought was these are not fights, or there was nothing that was deal breaking in it, so. that was relayed on to them. Your suggestions were reviewed. We didn't implement any of them, and they said, okay.
Okay. Next up then, with our last little bit, public comment. Yeah, hi. Yeah, hi.
Hi, sorry we were
That's okay.
late. Is there a copy of the proposed MOU language?
Would
That
be
we
in the
could have
packet.
For
It's in the-
what?
PAR for the.
PIR is right, I'm sorry.
It's just the same thing that's in the packet.
It's in the packet.
Yeah, I don't have a printed copy.
I can get your copy, but it's in the packet.
Okay, that's good, I'll get it. Thanks.
Right.
Just one comment, or actually two comments. One is that at the last Parks Board meeting, we set up a little committee, including, Luke Russell, myself, and Melissa Griffith, to start the process of looking at our MOU processes.
I love it.
You know, how we can maybe simplify the process and how we can maybe make sort of a template for organizations that are considering MOUs, because it seems to be, the process really seems to be dragging out quite a bit, and there seems to be a lot of confusion what really needs to be in MOUs.
Yeah.
We can set up a sample of an MOU, and we know that every MOU is gonna be a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
They're all gonna be a little unique, and, but if we can kind of help the organizations that want to use fields, want to propose new recreational facilities, that type of thing, that we can streamline it, make it simpler.
Yeah.
Once we get that completed, and I hope maybe in May we'll have that completed, would you folks like to see it?
Yes.
Would you
Yeah,
invite you folks
That would be very helpful.
Actually, one question is, for that committee, when do you guys plan on meeting?
We haven't set a date yet.
So you're just gonna do a meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Would you mind if I get to
Love
an
to have
invite
you
on
there.
that? That'd be cool.
Yep, love to have you there. And then the second is just basically a question on my part about MOUs is, do we have, in the process, do we have a tracking system so that we know when MOUs come up to be renewed?
Life goal.
Because it seems like we got some MOUs out that are probably expired, I'm just kind of guessing.
What we have is just a collection of the MOUs in a binder, and so you kind of look at them chronologically and say, okay, everything from here to here. So the answer is, there's not an electronic one that flags it.
Well, you know, I'm not saying it has to be electronic or it has to be a binder, but
Some system, yeah.
the system has to have somebody who's checking the system. You know, I mean, it may be on a monthly review, looking at a binder
Yeah.
or electronic files to find out when things come up for renewal. I mean,
Yeah.
some MOUs, I'm kind of guessing maybe some MOUs aren't even pertinent anymore, you know?
Yeah, no, that's actually one thing that got started within land use and planning a while ago with Sandy, when she
Yeah.
was on here.
Yeah,
She
she-
pulled all of the
A lot.
MOUs,
They went back
marked
way-
which ones had been expired and which ones were just completely out of date. I don't know what
Some from the
happened.
eighties?
Yeah, and
Somewhat, yeah.
and so that is absolutely part of the process that needs to get addressed. And I'll say it's not something that we currently have on the agenda, but it's certainly something in the purview and part of what we've been discussing at length. The problem is, again, now it's 5:18 and we haven't even gotten to talk about it again, so.
And I think that it's very much in the purview of land use and planning. I think it's not hugely in the purview of parks, other than
No.
input and helping people get ready to come to this group in council.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I agree with you completely, Dave. I think the Parks Board, portion of this process is just to either recommend MOUs to be passed on further. I don't think we should be tracking it or.
No, God, no.
But I think somewhere within the system.
Yeah,
the
honestly.
governance of the MOUs, there should be some type of tracking method.
Yeah, there should be something at the city level that, I mean, all it has to be is a calendar or a spreadsheet that literally has your dates.
Yeah,
And it can
exactly.
trigger an alarm essentially whenever it's a year, and that's the thing, it should be, these are generally 5-year MOUs.
Mhm.
A year out, that should be brought back to the table, and then not only that, a lot of the contact information is wildly out of date.
Sure.
You know, I agree with you that there has to be a system for that. And I was already thinking today on MOU templates, where there's certain clauses that have to exist, period, and then additional recommendations for clause types. And honestly, I was thinking about some of my, like, real estate forms and how we can literally just plug different things in and like.
That's kind of the concept we're working on.
Yeah, and so I think there's definitely a way to just basically make a PDF that's fillable.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree that that should be a part of the process. I also want to see that as a recommendation letter for like the different entities.
Yeah.
To where instead of planning board having, or not planning board, Parks Board feeling like they have to
Draft something new every time.
draft something new every time or be super, like, they could literally just have a letter, like, that is their template, that they're like, okay, we have president sign it, it's been stamped by Parks Board, and now it moves on in their packet for getting everything addressed.
And along with the template, it should, like a checklist of the elements that should be included in the
Exactly.
MOU.
Exactly. So that's, again, that is something within the purview and what we've been talking about and discussing. It's just a matter of, like, I really wish that I could just take a retreat and work on this for 2 days straight and knock something out, but.
I feel like Parks Board, you guys get to see, you get to hear things in kind of the very preliminary stages.
Mhm.
So it'd be nice to have,
Yeah, we're kind of first step of it.
yeah.
But
And
there
also a
are,
lot of optimism.
but there are probably MOUs that are outside Parks Board's purview too.
Oh, absolutely.
And again, there's gonna be certain aspects of an MOU that's outside of the Parks Board
Yeah.
purview as well, you know, and again, that's when planning comes into play, but, okay, any other public comment?
Just a quick question,
Yeah.
if somebody's watching that video, Dave, you just kind of threw out the comment, and I'm a little red flag. You said something about there was a city meeting, it was not, the public was not invited, and then
Oh.
it will be public meeting.
So on that MOU, staff is going to meet with the folks doing the PAR first, AKA Mike Maples. And not everything the city does is a public meeting. So like a staff meeting is not a public meeting. So staff is going to be two people when they select the committee and when they have a kickoff and say, we want to make sure you address this, this, and this, and this. That's not a public meeting. That's a staff meeting.
Okay.
And so, but a PAR does require a public hearing. So there will be public hearings that are involved in this process, but the staff meeting kickoff is not one of them. Does that help?
Sort of.
Okay.
So, and just a little clarification on that staff meeting kickoff, it's essentially, it's making sure that certain items are addressed within the PAR prior to them starting the work. And a lot of that is from land use and planning. We essentially plan on creating a checklist based off what we've been hearing from the public, what we've discussed here at the table as well. And so that way, those public concerns are being recognized within the PAR and making it a little bit more concise than a public free-for-all or, you know, it just making it a very easy, can you please address these things? And so, again, it's not that it's trying to be behind closed doors, it's mostly just for efficiency.
Okay.
And again, public input is very much a part of that, where we want to have that checklist of what we've been hearing.
And
That-
basically, staff is relaying that information. on.
Correct.
So.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, one more thing on, is there a finite length of time for a PAR in statutes or in city rules?
Meaning how long they last or how long they take?
Yeah. What?
How long they last or how long they take?
I don't know what you mean.
Meaning, they're gonna get
For what period of time are they in effect?
valid. Mike, can you speak to that? When we get a PAR,
For water and sewer, you know, we mainly, the PERs for those are.
It's limited because of the scope?
Yeah, well, they're mainly a planning document is their purpose, so, you know, at some point, they're not gonna be relevant anymore.
Sure.
And they're a powerful tool when we go to the funding agencies. If we have, it's in our interest to have our PERs up to date. Like, if one's 3 years old and a planning grant comes out, we go get that grant and update it. Because it makes us
You
more
have to update it to apply for the grant.
Well, it just makes us more competitive when we go to compete for the grant money. If they're looking at, well, this was 5 years ago,
Yeah.
you know, your cost estimates.
Yeah, so part of it is the number estimates, you're gonna be looking at it and saying, this is a 1-year-old estimate, therefore it's not as accurate, or a 2-year-old estimate, or a 3-year-old estimate.
But there are state statutes.
I don't know.
There are
There could be, I don't know.
I just don't know what they are.
I don't know that there really, I don't know that there really are. I think it's just looking at a document that the older it gets, the less relevant it becomes.
It's a planning tool.
That's all it is,
It is,
really.
it's a planning
It's a
document.
planning, it's a tool to make decisions with and plan.
To kind of wrap this up a little bit, or tighten this up a little bit, I'm not certain if there is a timeline to where it's no longer valid. That being said, I do know that PARs are regulated by the state. I did request, the planners to send me a link to that, because again, it's a lot of rules, it's thick. I didn't assume that's something that we want in our packet, but I did want to at least provide that link in case anyone wanted to do their homework, and then if we needed to, we could refer back to it. I have not received that link. That being said, yes, there's a timeline on it, just in the fact that time is of the essence when you're creating a document of this nature. But in terms of the extent of the MOU, I think it's more your concern.
Well, yeah, but for a PR, there's no reason to say this becomes invalid after X amount of time because it's a planning tool. But a non-PAR MOU.
MOUs are traditionally 5-year period.
Yeah.
So you have to renew MOUs every 5 years.
And when you do
Memorandum of understanding between two organizations.
shouldn't there be a date on it?
There is,
No.
on MOU.
On MOU.
On MOUs, that's not an MOU.
Memorandum of understanding.
Oh, I got what you're saying. I'm caught up now.
Gotcha. So we need to have we need our 5-year period on there, is what I'm hearing.
We,
Or whatever.
That's
Or if it's left.
Yeah,
Enough said.
got it, thank you. All right, I think that's it for now. I'm going to adjourn this meeting and let the next meeting get rolling.